Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sofia Azevedo and this is my colleague Marta Candeias. We are the Portuguese NMP National Contact Points, and as part of NMP National Contact Points European Network, the NMP team, which is funded by the European Commission, we are organizing this fourth virtual event for clients. We have already organized other three, one about technology readiness levels, another about business plans, and the previous one about synergies with other funding mechanisms. Today's virtual event for clients is about policy mix. Our speaker will be Doris Schroeker from the European Commission, DG Research and Innovation, Unit Key Enabling Technologies Strategy. This event will take around 1 hour and a half. It will consist of first policies presentation that will be then followed by a questions and answers session. The event will begin with questions from the registration forms, and afterwards we will take some questions from this chat. So please feel free to put questions during Doris' presentation. If by any chance your question will not be answered here today, Doris will give us the answers later on. This event will be recorded, and along with the presentation and the answers, it will be published on the NMP team website. Without any further delays, let us start our event. Good afternoon, Doris. Thank you, first of all, for accepting the invitation to speak about policy mix. And now the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Regards to greetings to Lisbon and greetings to all over Europe, where participants and people interested in our program are watching and listening. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak about the policy background of our work program in Horizon 2020, because that is something which is very, very important, not only for us and for those who want to succeed with their proposals, but for Europe. To speak about the policy dimension of a technological work program and calls and projects which deal with research and innovation means that we speak about the meaning of these projects for Europe. And my message is that it is good for those who prepare proposals to be aware of this and to take this into account. And I hope that I can also give some practical advice of where to find in the work program the hints which need to be followed up. So if we start with the presentation, and if there are any questions, we can answer them at the end of it, then we start. We start with the first slide. I start with Horizon 2020. Everybody who is listening is probably familiar with the key elements. It's a single program with 3 pillars. We have less prescriptive topics, a strong emphasis on expected impact, and that is a dimension and that is an aspect which will come again and again in my presentation, because it is about what we want to achieve with the program through the different projects. The emphasis, certainly in our part of the program, which is on industrial leadership, is the innovation aspect and the involvement of the industry. For example, through the public-private partnerships. Horizon 2020 has a strategic approach, 2-year work programs in order to allow the industry to plan ahead. Focus areas which bring together different technologies, because solutions of the future are more and more interdisciplinary. And simplification is a key issue in order to facilitate the access and the participation rules, in particular also for the SMEs and the industry. Next slide. Next slide. So where in Horizon 2020 are we with NMPP, and what does it stand for? My Directorate for Industrial Technologies is in charge of a part in Horizon which is in the pillar on industrial leadership. So the industry and its needs and where technology is needed, that is in our focus. We speak about key enabling technologies, and in our part we address 4 of them. nanotechnologies, advanced materials, biotechnology, and advanced manufacturing and processing. So if we speak about the part of the Horizon 2020 work program today, this is what we speak about. Next slide. Where is the policy context? When President Juncker started, he identified in Europe a big finance gap, an investment gap, in particular of private financing. So he determined, and the Commission is following that line, that the Commission works on the basis of 10 priorities, of which 5 are particularly important for the research and innovation dimension. It is to boost jobs, growth and investment, and all indicators show that where research and innovation are high, also new jobs are being created. A connected digital single market, because digitization is driving a lot of innovation also in our technological areas because they are combined. A resilient energy union is needed to keep the security of supply and also to achieve the goals of climate change mitigation, forward-looking climate change policy. To develop a deeper and fairer internal market with a strengthened industrial base, and to make Europe a stronger global actor. You find all these elements in one way or the other in Horizon 2020 and in particular also in our work program. Our commissioner looked deeper into this as well, into the innovation dimension, and looking at global trends and technological trends and where the success factors sit. He came up with a priority and a strategy which relates to open innovation, open science, and open to the world, which by itself also mirrors again the Commission priorities. Next slide, please. So what are these key enabling technologies? They are 6 strategic technologies, of which we cover 4, which are at the heart of a lot of innovation in everyday life and in the industry and in our working life. They drive competitiveness and growth, because any kind of new smart product will in one way or the other have either advanced materials or nano-based materials, or it will be manufactured through advanced manufacturing technologies. So they are coming back and again. They contribute to solving societal challenges as well, and I will come back to their contribution to the energy union, for example, to the energy technologies, which are very much based on nanotechnology, on engineered materials, and on intelligent, smart manufacturing technologies. They are knowledge and capital intensive in the scale up. So this is why it is important to know exactly what you're doing and to be able to attract investors into the further investments needed to commercialize technologies. And they cut across many sectors. Materials can address many different applications, transport, IT, energy, but in the beginning it's material science and material research until the different applications are discovered and tested. At European level, in the industrial policy context and in the innovation policy context, we speak about a strategy for these KETs, the key enabling technologies. And if you're interested to know more about that, there are 2 communications from the European Commission describing the concept and also the measures we set behind. And what we do in Horizon is in line with this strategy. And the Commission had also advised through a high-level group, which finalized their report in June last year, and you find that on the web to read about that. Next slide, please. The strategic context for all this, and also for our part in Horizon 2020, is the importance of EU manufacturing. It's more than 2 million enterprises in Europe are in the manufacturing sector, across different sectors. They are in charge, or they spend 66, 2/3 of the private R&D investment. They provide 33 million jobs. and have a huge turnover which is growing. The cats have a huge growth opportunity here. They are also the biggest purchaser and user of cats. So this is why the manufacturing industry and its relevance for Europe is at the heart of our activities as well. If you look at the next slide, at these graphs, however, you see that the blue curve is slowly but steadily going down, while the other curves are, at least in particular the red one, which represents China, is increasing. So the share of Europe in global manufacturing is going down. And the question for us is, what does this mean for Europe? Because at the same time, manufacturing, and in particular where innovation plays a huge role, that is a source of jobs and growth. So we come back to the policy context of why we are doing our research and innovation program. Next slide, please. So how do the Commission's policy priority reflect in Horizon 2020? It reflects that with our projects and in using the results of the projects, which actually then you do, those who listen to us here, we want to boost jobs, growth and investment. And this is also the industry which should be able to make use of the internal market and strengthen the industrial basis. We have an aim of reindustrializing the EU and creating a strong industrial basis where it is the source of jobs and knowledge. You will find in the work program references to the digital single market, because digitization is either explicitly or implicitly one of the drivers of innovation, in particular in industry. And you will find contributions to the Energy Union for example, in our initiatives on energy efficient buildings or materials for energy. Last but not least, on this slide you see the circular economy. This is a very ambitious economic concept of reusing also side products and waste and creating value out of something which in the past has been treated as a waste. So we try to use this proactively in our to address this proactively in our projects, and to have work on this to make this a reality. Next slide, please. How do we work in our program? We work very much in partnership with industry, with SMEs, to stimulate private investments. We try to target entire value chains and ecosystems because people work together. We have academia, researchers, and industry working together. And we would like also that they involve their users and their customers. I come back to what I said before, open innovation. The source of ideas, the knowledge of market is coming through new sources and so through a reinforced partnership also with the users and all along the value chains. One key element is demonstrating and piloting. For us, this is one of the essential strategies to convince users as well that new solutions are valid and that it's worth investing in it. We support 4 of the 6 key enabling technologies, as I said, and as the name of our program says as well. And we look as well, we go closer to the market. We are applying the technology readiness level concept, and we bridge the TRLs from a level of 3 closer to the market to 6 and 7, with a strong emphasis on the expected impact. The total budget in our program in Horizon 2020 is 3.8 billion, which we stretch over 7 years, and now we are going into the 4th year of calls, and so this is a good moment to deal also with the background and to look again into what kind of projects should be done. The focus is on manufacturing, and it's not the first time that you have heard about the 4th industrial revolution, and I mention again the digitization, which goes together with a lot of innovation in these key enabling technologies. Next slide, please. The ultimate objectives is to leverage further investment. We can help through public investments, for example, through synergies with other funding instruments like the European Structural and Investment Fund. We also have a supporting program which is supporting industry through metrology. But we hope, and that is one of the objectives, a key objective of our funding, that the private participants invest themselves following the projects they have in Horizon. We have a close partnership in the public-private partnerships like Factories of the Future, which committed itself, for example, to leverage the investments they get from Horizon by 5 to 10 times. Similar for the sustainable process industry and for the industry dealing with energy efficient buildings. We contribute as well to a joint technology initiative on bio-based industries, also with the objective of having industry invest further into their commercial interests based on technology. We work together with the European Investment Bank on the InnoFin instrument, which gives new possibilities for finance for research and innovation that is higher risky projects. And you know very well the Juncker plan, the European Investment Program, through the new fund in the investment banks to mobilize in total 315 billion, also through guarantees of European funds. We can as well link to the state aid regime, which provides for new instruments, which is important projects of common European interest, which gives new possibilities for industry as well to go closer to the market with high risky projects. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. This shows how we implement the technology readiness levels in our program. You see the lower ones from basic research going over validation in the lab to validation in the industrial area. This is where we set a new focus to go to industry and to move the partnerships between researchers and academia and industrial researchers into projects which go closer to the market and which demonstrate technologies and new solutions in an industrial context. Next slide, please. A little bit of background how our work program is developed. We set priorities based on European roadmaps and advice we get from the stakeholders through different mechanisms. We have an advisory group with 30 members, which is an official channel. We consult them on the strategy of the work program. And we have input on the technological and industrial roadmaps from the relevant European technology platforms, the partnership boards of the public-private partnerships with which we are working, industry-driven initiatives such as the one for key enabling technologies for healthcare or for energy materials, and we consult also the member states through the program committee configuration. Next slide. This is a slide where I will not go through all the details, but it's a list of the advice we have received from the advisory group and which has helped us to shape the work program and to select out of these different European roadmaps those areas which are of particular relevance and particular added value at European level. Next slide, please. Beyond Horizon 2020, there are policy developments which create favorable conditions for innovation as well. We have other activities to stimulate demand-side actions. We look into the regulatory framework conditions for innovation. Our projects are all based on the collaboration between public and private sector, between academia, research organizations, industry, and SMEs. We look into the finance conditions. Standardization is a big issue for us. New skills has, in particular in the key enabling technology area, is one of the pathways for competitiveness in the future. It's about promoting entrepreneurship, public procurement, and we evaluate as well what we have achieved in FP7, for example, and we are currently now already preparing for the midterm evaluation of Horizon 2020 in order to set the scene right for the activities in the work program. Next slide. This is an overview on the public-private partnerships in Horizon 2020 with whom we cooperate. We cooperate with four actually contractual PPPs: the factories of the future, the energy efficient buildings, the sustainable process industry, and the green vehicles, which have their focus in the transport part of Horizon 2020, and we contribute to the bio-based industries. Next slide, please. So some practicalities here on the NMPP work program. It is published on the participant portal. We are now looking towards the calls 2017, and we are just preparing an update, which we ask you to consult as of July. We recommend you to read all parts of the work program, and the policy context in particular is described in the introduction to the late part, leadership of enabling and industrial technologies, and including in particular the section on business cases and exploitation strategies for industrialization. Because we ask you already in the proposals to prepare business plan outlines, and you need to prepare exploitation plans following the outcome of various studies that the earlier in research, and in particular for innovation, you look into the market, the more likely you are successful in the end, even if you need to update your plans in function of the outcome, and if you get over time more and more market relevant knowledge. But this needs to be part of the work from the beginning. We have two parts of the work program, which includes our topics. Our core part, NMPP, where you find the call on the energy efficient buildings and the main NMPP call, and a cross-cutting part, which includes a focus area on Industry 2020 in the circular economy, which includes calls on pilot lines, the factories of the future, and the sustainable process industries. The fact that we have a focus area where also topics from other parts of the program are brought together in the spirit of having an industrial policy background and innovation in the industry to help bring the circular economy forward shows that this policy dimension of which I mentioned plays a role in the design of the work program. Next slide, please. This slide gives you some detail on the budget of the 2017 calls. And again, we launch different types of actions: research and innovation actions, coordination support actions, and ERANETS. And the topic descriptions take account of the nature of these different actions, so that they are also, you should read very, very carefully the description of the challenges, the scope, and in particular the impact which needs to be achieved. So the expected impact statements in the topic descriptions are very, very important to follow, in conjunction with what we write about the business plan aspects in the introduction, to understand or to give us the background of your proposal, so that we are sure that it's not only clear to you what you want to do, but also why you want to launch this project. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this describes why the expected impact is so very important. It is one of the 3 evaluation criteria, and each topic description includes a rather detailed description which can be either related to objectives of substance, for example, improvements in energy efficiency or in reductions of CO2 emissions or in achieving certain technological objectives. It can also relate to objectives in terms of outreach, in terms of transfer of knowledge, in terms of European added value of the findings you have in the project. So read please very carefully what impact is expected from the topic and from your proposal, and you are asked to describe in the proposal description how you plan to reach that impact. For most topics, the impact should be underpinned by business cases and exploitation strategies for industrialization, which is further described in the introduction. But this is where we ask you really to describe why you're doing it, which markets you want to reach, how you want to address them, how the consortium composition relates to that, and in which way you want to deal with the results as well. The impact description should be realistic and credible. The fact that exploitation strategies need to be part of the proposal is not new, and that is even an admissibility criteria. And in our NMPP calls, the impact criteria is the first criteria which is used in case proposals have equal scores to rank them within equal scores. And for innovation actions, the impact criterion is weighted by 1.5, which gives it more relevance within the other 3 criteria. Next slide, please. Just to complement the description of our work program, also in our work program you find topics which address the SME instrument. That is specific support for SMEs to help them grow in Europe and beyond. We will overall dedicate 7% of the budget to this SME instrument, and it is completely bottom up. So there is no specific area other than our core areas like nanotechnologies, materials and advanced manufacturing, and in biotechnology as well. But what is done within is not described. There are only cross-cutting requirements in terms of the feasibility studies and product development which will be evaluated. There are 3 phases. Phase 1, the feasibility studies. Phase 2 for the innovation development and demonstration. Phase 3 goes beyond horizon and is then reserved for specific services for commercialization. So you see here that the impact is very important, going directly to the market. The fast track to innovation is a pilot, which is fully open, fully bottom-up support for close-to-market innovation activities with cut-off dates and no topic predefined. Next slide, please. And you may have heard about the ideas to create a European Innovation Council. This is to create a framework for disruptive innovation in Europe. This is where we have still weaknesses compared to other competing world regions like the United States, for example, where we have a consultation open until the 29th of April if you are interested to contribute, where some ideas are launched that the European Innovation Council could bring together and simplify access to current innovation instruments, to fill gaps to provide strategic advice, a one-stop shop. So there are different ideas, and you are also invited to contribute and to give us advice on what you think Europe needs in this respect. Next. Yeah, just to show you once more the focus area, Industry 2020 in the circular economy brings together topics from the NMBP part, the information and communication technologies and the societal challenges, which all have a strong industrial dimension and have a strong sustainability element and addressing the circular economy. This is where you find the calls of our part as well, together with others, so that in the end we have one place, a one-stop shop if you want, for the industry in relation to the circular economy and sustainability. For example, for the sustainable process industry, or also for the factories of the future and pilot lines and specific topics addressing the circular economy. We had that in 2016 and it will be open in 2017 again. Next slide. Yeah. This is now where the topics start. Yeah. And which is then more the technical description as you find them in the work program. If you allow me, I would stop here because the focus of today is on the background and on the policy context. That's maybe the moment as well to ask questions and to see in which areas you're interested that I go a bit more further into detail. And the presentation and all the topic descriptions will be made available to you. There will be also specific info days, and I'm happy that the NMP project, NMP team project also brings together the NCPs from the different countries so that these services and the information is made available. And as soon as the calls 2017 are published, there will be new info days, and you can directly come with very specific questions on very specific topics also to the NCPs. So thanks for this.
Thank you, Doris. This was indeed a very interesting presentation. We will start with some questions that we have gathered from the registration form. I'm just preparing the presentation, and I will ask our colleagues to project them. I don't know how you want to proceed. You have the questions. Should we read them? You want to read them and reply to them?
Yeah. Which synergies... Oh, I'm sorry, I lost the questions. I had them on the screen. Yes. Which synergies should be taken into consideration from structural funds, smart specialization and involvement of KIC initiatives? We are looking for synergies with other funding instruments in order to show that the variety of instruments which we can offer at European level, but also what the member states and the regions offer, that it fits together. Horizon has its focus, but for example, when it is about the impact, when it is about the follow-up to projects given, you may need other funding instruments. You may be, for example, at a phase where it is it's already mature for private funding. Then we can help through the finance instruments. If you want to invest in a region, for example, and the region allows for this in its program, then we encourage you to use the means you have in the region, because that goes beyond what we can do at European level. But we have other European instruments like the European structural and investment funds, which can help for these purposes. So we encourage you to think early already what you may need after the project.
Okay.
And to make use of these synergies and to describe what you know already at the proposal stage in the proposal and what you plan to do.
Okay, basically the second one was more like a comment, some hints on how to link H2020 to structural funds. You already mentioned it, so we will continue. The next one is how the policies are considered in the evaluation of proposals.
Yeah.
Is this considered as a clear sign of bigger impact?
I would recommend to focus the proposal on what is in the topic description, but to write it based on the guidance we give in the introduction. So, for example, what we expect is that projects show that they can be a milestone in a development, that they show how they reflect the policies. Because in the end, it is about the industrial impact we are looking for, and we describe for each topic the specific impact expectations. So, if there is a need to describe this in the bigger policy impact, then it is certainly useful. If it's an advantage, or how we treat it in the evaluation, it depends. It will be evaluated against the specific topic and in comparison of all the proposals who come along. But to show that the policy context is taken into account, that the impact is being achieved through a realistic strategy, through the right consortia composition, for example, through synergies with other instruments, showing that the consortium has the overview on the options and the possibilities to go further, that is certainly an advantage.
Okay. The next one is how to interconnect inter-regional cluster with Horizon 2020 and to promote common goals concerning testing ideas via pilot lines.
This is a very complex question.
What is your feeling, or your ideas on the subject?
Well, if a topic requires that clusters are connected, and then it is certainly useful. What we want with our project is certainly to reach out to the regions, because the innovation in the end happens in companies, in SMEs, in institutions, in all parts of Europe, out in the regions. So if the question aims at how to connect that, then we are certainly interested to have an impact in the regions beyond the participating institutions, which speaks then about dissemination, which is important for all EU projects as well, which speaks about technology transfer, which speaks about the impact on regional ecosystems. This is certainly something which we would welcome as an impact as well in our projects, or of our projects.
The next one is how to do an integrated approach across the societal challenges and leadership in enabling and industrial technologies. What I believe it's the main focus of the question is how to merge and have the policies behind the two main pillars interconnected, and how they should in a way be aligned in between.
Mm-hmm. Yes. This is a very important question, because it leads it shows how not only different parts of Horizon 2020 interact, but how the reality interacts. When we speak about technologies and industrial leadership, then it's always for a purpose. Now, one of the important purposes is to address societal challenges. If you have solutions which help energy, which help transport to become more sustainable, and at the same time it helps to make those who develop these solutions to make them more competitive on the markets, then this is exactly what we are aiming at. or take the circular economy as an example. We want to give those who are willing to invest into this concept and those who see a business case in it, we want them to show how this is possible and to get an advantage out of being the first in this.
Thank you, Doris. The next question is about differentiations or complementarities between an Eureka cluster project and an H2021. What is difference and how they should be complemented? This is my interpretation of should imagine that you have a project that was funded via Eureka or via Horizon 2020. These synergies are welcomed. They should further be exploited.
Yes. I think we welcome all synergies, all connections, and there will be many also societal problems or competitiveness ambitions which need more than one project. So if there is synergy or if there's complementarity between activities under different projects, then the idea is also to bring them together and to create networks and to create transfer of knowledge. So that what we do in Horizon projects, for example, feeds over and enhances as well the knowledge basis for other activities, for example, in Eureka projects.
Okay, thank you. And we have reached the last question that was being registered in the forms. Marta, we received any questions in the chat?
Well, it was such a clear presentation that we had very few questions. In fact, we have one about if there are already mechanisms and guidance to exploit synergies with structural funds, and how do you view these synergies to be achieved? We have already done a virtual event on this subject, but maybe we can have your opinion.
Yeah, I think I was very happy that you had this event already, because there are many questions around that, and it is still work in progress, and it's still a learning process. There are mechanisms for getting the knowledge in this. There are mechanisms which bring regions together. There are mechanisms which bring industry together who are interested in how to use regional programs. As a matter of information, I would recommend to consult the RIS3 webpage, where the different strategies of different regions are described, and to look also into the activities of the different regions, because it is the region itself who determines what the programs are, what the specialization strategies are, which mechanisms they are using. And what we hope as well is that with the increasing amount of interchange and dialogue also between regions and with the Commission, we get it out, and we get more and more experience also in the regions to deal with research and innovation. I think they have already a basis of dealing with the industry and the SMEs in the regions. So I hope that we can get there very soon. We had a workshop as well this week in Brussels, in the area. We know that many regions have a lot of interest in the CATS and in helping industry and researchers in these areas. So my first advice would be to find out what individual interesting regions are doing and to contact them directly and to be part of this learning process.
Thank you. And what about synergies with Plan Juncker? How is that being addressed? The Juncker plan.
Yeah. The Juncker plan is an open pipeline for projects. It's also in this area. There is no preconceived topic or so. It is about an EIB finance line, and we hope that that there are industries invest, or also it can also be public investors who are interested setting up projects for innovation in industry as well, where they can get financing from the EIB. So we see that, for example, as an accompanying or as a follow-up instrument to Horizon projects, for example, when they address higher technology readiness levels and industry tries to get things ready for the industrialization.
Thank you. Maybe if you allow me, I have some questions myself. How you didn't mention, but I think it is worth mentioning it. How can stakeholders contribute to changing policies or somehow to the policies that are being developed?
The Commission has a policy of consultations. So when we prepare important decisions, there are open public consultations. For example, like the one I mentioned on the European Innovation Council, it's a call for ideas where everybody can submit ideas through the consultation on the internet. When we prepare work programs, for example, we consult the European technology platforms. They are aware of these processes, and the European technology platforms and also the PPPs, they have their mechanisms which usually are also open and are also web-based, so that many stakeholders who are interested can submit their ideas, propose priorities, and
going on for FOF right now.
Yeah, for Factories of the Future has just launched a new consultation because we're in the phase of preparing the last program. We can send the link as part of the follow-up to this webinar here.
Oh, thank you. That would
So
be very much.
There are ways, and we can also give a list of the technology platforms, for example. They all have web pages and consultation mechanisms, so that nobody should feel excluded not to be able to contribute.
Perfect, Doris. I just have one more question. Oh no, I have one from the chat. What is a good strategy to involve stakeholders in the proposal to show that they are really part of the project? I mean, I believe this is about some, not beneficiaries, but consultants or stakeholders groups, perhaps.
Stakeholder groups, well, if I go back to the concept of open innovation is based on an exchange with customers, for example, with the civil society, to understand where the needs are and how to address them, and also for the industry where the markets are and what products, services, what solutions could find new markets. So I think it would be good to think about involving them in projects. We hope also that Horizon offers this possibility in the spirit of open innovation. Certainly we welcome that. There are different ways of doing it. It can be through physical groups, it can be through outreach actions, it can be through communication. We ask all projects to disseminate results, to communicate with the public as well, and to use that as a source of knowledge, of inspiration, and also to create impact.
Thank you. Last question then. Can you elaborate a little more on the industry-driven initiatives and how are they or will be reflected on the program?
We have in areas where European industry sees a need and an added value to work together beyond boundaries, beyond geographic borders, beyond sectoral boundaries, in order to achieve a common objective and to share information. Again, open innovation as well, to share innovation and to work together. they come together. So this is basically the source of all the different initiatives with which we communicate and which we see, the technology platforms, the PPPs, and also the industry-driven initiatives. There are 2 industry-driven initiatives which have a specific focus also on societal challenges. One on health and one on energy, which we consider particularly important and particularly relevant as well from the CATS perspective. For advanced materials play a very important role for the new generation of energy technologies, for example, for the energy union. So this is something where when we see the European added value and we see the need to work, and in Horizon you see as well the complementary work in the energy challenge, for example, and we would like to reinforce these links as well, then we give these areas space in the work programs. This is why you find calls in for CATS for energy and CATS for health, for example.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all from my side.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Doris, for this very interesting discussion that we just had. Before closing the event, Doris, would you like to say something else before we end it? Do you have any recommendation about how proponents should consider policies? Anything, any hint for the proponents that are watching to this event?
First, I would like to thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome.
I think it's very important. It's my ambition was to really draw the attention of the proposers to the fact that for us it's important not only that they do technologically good projects, they should really have a meaning for Europe. It is, after all, public money, it is European taxpayers' money. We have a lot of problems and challenges in Europe, also related to the situation of industry. Jobs and growth is not only buzzwords for us. They really mean something, and we hope that our projects, and that is what we expect, and that what we require also, that we see a pathway from research and innovation to the future of industry and to the future of jobs in Europe. This is, I don't need to stress more how important that is. We have a variety of instruments in Europe which can help. Mm-hmm. This is where the synergies come in, and we would very much like that the proposers show in the proposals that they are aware of this and that they are not doing the projects for the sake of a project, even though this is by itself already gives it a meaning, but that they know why they want to do the projects and where to go. This perspective in the bigger context, that is very important for us, in particular also in relation to the other challenges we have to solve, in relation to, for example, sustainability, climate change, energy consumption, resource consumption. These are questions which are not only policy questions, they are very relevant for the industry as well, and we want to bring this together, and where we want to show it is in the projects and in the end in the results of the program as a whole.
Thank you, Doris. We would like to remind all the participants that the NMP team has a Twitter account, and we are trying to feed the account with new information in a daily basis. The information about this virtual event for clients will be made available on our website, on our YouTube channel. We will send the information to all the participants. We will prepare the frequently asked questions document to be validated before by the European Commission. It will all be put together in our website. And from our side, that's all. Thank you, Doris. Thank you, Pascal, for all the help that you gave us during the preparation of the virtual event for clients. And have a nice day, and hope to see you soon in another virtual event for clients.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.